Hi friends, welcome back to the Emmyville Railway today. I'm just doing a quick video on my two live steam locomotives that you've seen in other videos recently and in the past. I just wanted to give an overview of both engines up close, and also I'm going to fire up one of them, go over the firing procedure, and put it on the line and show you how to get one of these going. Unlike an electric train, such as this, live steam locomotives require a bit of skill to run, but they are very, very fun to run. An electric train you put on the track and it just goes however fast you tell it to. A live steam locomotive, you need to learn how to be an actual engineer, understand physics and thermodynamics and all kinds of stuff, machinery. They're very, very fun to run. I encourage anybody to get one of these engines. These Ruby series were designed to be a beginner, affordable introduction to the live steam world, because a lot of times a live steam engine off the shelf could be between $2,000 to, sky's the limit, up to $8,000, $10,000 or more. This engine, when it was bought for me back in the year 2000, this is number 949 of the original series of AccuCraft Rubies. It was about $400, so it was very affordable to get into. It was assembled as you see it today. I really haven't modified it, so I'm just going to go over some of the features. The Ruby series wasn't really based on a specific prototype. It was more of a freelance representation of a small tank engine. A tank engine wouldn't have it tender. It would be probably oil fired or coal fired if there was a coal bunker on the back. Water would be kept on one side, oil on the other. This engine runs on butane, as does this one. Both are the same engine essentially down to the frame. They both are a single flue, butane fired. They have a max operating pressure of 40 psi, and they're both G scale gauge 1 or 45 millimeter track gauge, depending on where you are in the world. So to take you around the engine, this is your front coupler and pilot, your cylinders, your smoke box. The boiler stops here and runs all the way back to here. So up in the front, you have your smoke box where the steam is ejected from the cylinders. You have your boiler with a single flue where the burner is. You have your water fill. This can screw out, but this here is a good all valve that we'll go over later. And this here is your safety valve. That's designed to release pressure at 40 psi. There's a series of little springs inside. Now, if you've been watching me spin this engine here, you'll notice there's some wires in the cab, and you're going to say, geez, I thought this was a live steam model that actually ran on steam. And well, you're right. Looking in the back here, I used some of my RC airplane parts to fabricable a remote regulator for this, because Rubies are notorious for running away. Once the cylinders get warm and the steam gets warm and drier, they tend to take off, so it's nice to have something to regulate it back. So what I did is I took a cheapo spare RC plane transmitter, and I regulated it, or rigged it up so that the servo was on the throttle channel. So it's only one function, and as you pull back on the stick, it'll go faster, just like an airplane. So the receiver is in here. The battery's actually tucked into that cab there. This is the receiver antenna, and that's the servo. There's a commercial kit, but I just fabricable it in the shop. So give you an idea. This is nice when the locomotive gets warm. You're not having to chase it down. So we'll take off the cab here and This battery is just Velcro to the inside of the cab, so we're just going to disconnect it for now. And going over what's in the cab, you have your steam displacement lubricator. So you pour in something called very viscous called steam oil. That's in this bottle here. And as steam comes out through the throttle, it displaces the oil and takes a little bit of oil, brings it through the steam pipe into the cylinders to lubricate them. This is your butane tank, and you just crack it open and it'll fire up. Back here is the burner for the butane, and your jet with a nozzle inside of it, and your Johnson bar. This here is your safety gauge, or pressure gauge. Like I said, this safety valve will lift at 40 psi, but this gauge will give you kind of an idea what's happening inside the engine. And I'll go over something kind of cool later on. So that's the Ruby. Other than the RC stuff, this is a stock Ruby. I just added these KD couplers for compatibility to my line for the cars on my railroad. This here is a Ruby that was there. It's a Ruby that's designed to look like one of the Forney type locomotives up in Maine on the many narrow gauge lines in the state of Maine. Same idea, smoke box, single flue. This doesn't have the tanks, just has some running boards. It has a kit. This is a wooden cab. Comes off, coal bunker that's not used. Just got some fake coal in there. What would be a water tank. These Forney locomotives in real life were designed to run both backwards and forwards equally well. So same thing around this cab. It just doesn't have any RC parts. This one you have to follow around and manually run, but it's fuel tank, displacement lubricator. The frame is extended a bit, and you have this rear truck here. So we're going to go over to the line and fire it up and go over the firing procedures for this engine. Alright, so over here at the steam up table, I'm going to show you what's in my live steam kit. Now this is just in a little old tin, so it's easy to transport and everything's all together. For the side rods and the inner workings, I use this Pro 7 gun oil. Any sort of light machine oil or oil like this is good to lubricate the moving parts of the engine. So underneath here you'll see the moving parts. You have the eccentrics, rods, wheel bearings. So everything gets a nice coat of oil because it is easier to buy oil than it is to take one of these little engines apart. So, and it probably comes off in the first 10 feet anyway, but at least you feel better that you lubricated it. Also underneath here, that copper line in the back is the steam line from the regulator to the steam chest in there. And you can see a view of the rear truck and how that would swivel. The next thing you do is you take your butane, which you can get this stuff at Walmart or anywhere, or you can get this style can. You just need to buy this special adapter to fit over that. So when you fill this, you put this pipe on the little nipple. You want to make sure the regulator's closed. And when you start to see it spitting out, that's when you stop. see that cloud? The butane tank is full. One note I've noticed with some experience, it really doesn't affect the other Ruby, but with this engine, this tank is a little bit thicker. And what happens is, when you decompress a compressed liquid into a gas, it gets very, very cold. That's part of that thermodynamics thing I was talking about. And this is not a liquid anymore, so it's very cold. And this engine's been sitting outside for a little bit. It's about 80 degrees today, but you know, being Massachusetts, literally 2-3 days ago was 40 degrees here. Welcome to Massachusetts in May. This actually had a hard time vaporizing the fuel at enough volume to keep up with the burner's demand, and the engine actually had a very difficult time lighting. So when you fill this tank, you really, I mean, it's warm now, but on a cool day you'll actually feel this will stay cold for a while. So you got to let this come up to ambient temperature. So that's like almost the second thing I do before I get this locomotive going, is let that fuel come up to ambient temperature to build some vapor pressure to feed your burner. The next thing you want to do, and I know this locomotive is full, I was prepping it earlier, then I decided to shoot this video, is take off your displacement lubricator. Again, I know this locomotive to be full of oil. What happens as you run it, that water level, because the water sinks below oil, will start to rise, and you'll have less and less oil in your displacement lubricator. So what you gotta do is, I just adapted this little syringe, and you stick it down through the thick oil, and you suck out the water, because the water's on the bottom, and just spit it out onto the ground. Like I said, this lubricator is full. That steam oil. You can't skip out. You got to use proper steam oil, or else this won't work at all. So, tank is full. I mean, it's ambient temperature now. This is your regulator. I've actually had to replace this jet. If you have a problem with these, try with the jets first. I talked to a guy at the train department. It's a website, and he recommended replacing the jet because this engine just would not stay fired. It's having a lot of problems. So the next thing I'm going to do is fill the boiler. And also, while we fill the boiler, this engine is pretty much full. So I was going to run this earlier and decided to shoot the video. But if you take notice of that steam pressure gauge, right there, you'll notice as I pump the boiler full of dihydrogen monoxide, it will actually spike the pressure, because this serves as two things. It fills the boiler full of water, but it also serves as a poor man's hydro test. So if you have any problems with your boiler, or a crack, or a loose fitting, or something like that, you're going to find it, because it'll be spitting out water. So put the hose onto the Goodall valve, and watch as I pump water in, you'll see the pressure build inside the boiler. You'll see that pressure gauge start to climb. And as I pump it to 40 pounds, you'll actually see water come spitting out the safety valve, just like that. Because as you learned in high school, water itself is incompressible for most applications or situations. So you see that I'm holding 40 pounds of pressure in the boiler. The boiler is tight, the valves are tight. So throw this sand dome back on, or model sand dome. We'll bring it over. Some people suck out a couple milliliters of water so steam has a place to collect. I've run this engine a lot. I've run the other engine a lot, top full boilers, and I've never had a problem. And I like to know that the boiler is safe, and also that it's full, and that the safety valve is working, along with the pressure gauge. So let's bring it over the track and we'll fire it up. Alright, so now that the locomotive has been prepped, we're going to open up the smoke box and just crack the valve till you hear the gas hiss out. And light the burner. Not too much though. So you want the fire burning back in there. I don't know if you can really see it, but not in the smoke box, but because you can't tell obviously that that's burning. You put your hand right here above the smokestack, you'll feel the jet of hot air coming out. That's how you can tell it's still burning inside. So let's raise a head of steam and get this locomotive going. Alright, so the locomotive's been building pressure for a little bit, probably about 10 minutes. And you start to know it isn't ready because the safety will lift and you'll get steam out of it as opposed to just kind of crackling, boiling water. And also your steam pressure gauge will show about 40-ish pounds. Alright, so we're back. I found a few track defects when I got this engine running that I had to take care of. I recently sprayed all these weeds with all the rain we've had. They just came up almost instantly. So we're back to just about 40 psi. Get the fire back. So because steam is gas, these cylinders are cold. When the steam would come in, it would condense. And since these don't have cylinder cocks or little drains on the bottom, the only way out is up through the stack here. So when you get this engine going, throw the Johnson bar, crack the throttle, and it comes alive. So and you have to kind of work the water out so that the steam dries. And I just use a box pass to prevent scalding. And there you go. Smoke box came open. And that's about 1,000,000 degrees, so you want to be careful. So the track's got some defects I gotta fix. I'm not sure how well this is gonna work, but give it a little push here. You know, they say to find out how difficult something is, they say make a YouTube video about it. And of course it's not cooperating today. I don't know why. So Not sure why this is doing that, but alright, so I'm back down here on the train room, and I brought both locomotives back inside after a little bit of a cool down period for the number 9. And I was actually going to edit out part of that video where the locomotive actually was having trouble, but I decided to not. I wanted to give you the real life experience of owning one of these engines. Both locomotives are fantastic to run. They're very simple, but in the life of a live steamer, you are going to have times where, like any machine that's requires some skill to run, it gets a little finicky. I don't think I've actually conquered all of number 9's burner issues, and I think I might have to delve inside the fuel tank. There might be an issue inside of there. I think there's an occasional clog or some sort of restriction that's coming up and blocking some fuel from getting out. It's not just all vapor pressure, because it was almost 90 degrees by the time I came in, so that should have had plenty of ambient temperature to make that fuel boil, to give some vapor pressure. But like I said, you know, owning one of these locomotives, it's a ton of fun. It teaches you a lot. You know, they're quality machines, even though, you know, it does have some failures sometimes, like you saw. And, you know, it is finicky and requires maintenance, but that's part of the fun of this hobby, is the maintenance and problem solving. So yeah, they sit down here most of the time. I keep most of the cars outside, but you know, if someone walked off with one of those, if anyone ever came in the yard, I'm out $30 at the most for a cheapo plastic car, but these are pretty expensive to walk away with, so they stay inside when I'm not around. And also just protects them from spiders going in there and building nests and so on and so forth. So anyway, guys, I appreciate the you watching this channel and the videos that I do put up. I'm really actually trying to expand my YouTube presence. Not really sure how to do it. You know, I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it. I try to put up content when I can, but you know, this video is being shot during my daughter's nap time, so you know, hence the reason I didn't really mess around a lot outside with the engine. I just wanted to get a video up and on there. And yeah, I mean, I finally monetized my account, and I know, you know, people lose their minds when you say you get money off the internet, but you know, all that money I do get from Google, which isn't a lot, it's, you know, it's not a lot of money, goes back into making videos. You know, there's some rail car ones that are coming up, and you know, all the money I've got over the last couple months from my YouTube videos went to just go buy one new starter motor for my rail car, the full-size one. So, you know, I'm not getting rich off this, but the extra money does help, especially when it's coming time to pay the bills at the end of the month. You can kind of justify spending money on your hobbies to make videos, to give content. So, you know, I'd like to grow this channel into something more, and you know, you can help me by clicking that like button and you know, subscribing, and also sharing these videos too. Share it with your friends. And like I said, I do appreciate everyone that does watch my videos and enjoys the content. And even if you don't, at least you watched it. But like I said, I got some good information on there, and you got to see a real life locomotive problem, and maybe we'll delve into that in the next video. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. Bye.